Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be diving into something you might not think too much about with long term health, I guess
Hmm.
menopause relief.
Okay.
Specifically, we're going beyond hormone replacement therapy and really exploring those non hormonal options.
Okay.
And our guide for this deep dive is a fascinating article from the Journal of Nurse Practitioners,
Okay.
which we can always trust for reliable medical insights, I think.
Oh, sure.
And to help us unpack all of this, we have an expert in women's health joining us. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So I think a lot of us have heard that, some symptoms can linger long after we think, okay, we're in the clear.
Right.
What surprised me reading this article was how long? Like we're talking decades for some of these symptoms,
Yeah.
which really changes how we think about managing menopause, right?
Absolutely. I think there's this common misconception that menopause is like a one and done kind of deal.
Okay.
You have a year hot flashes and then you're home free. Yeah. But the reality is for some women, those symptoms, especially the ones that affect mood, sleep, even cognitive function,
Right.
those can linger for a lot longer than we've traditionally been led to believe.
Yeah. That's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about finding, short-term relief. It's about how do we support our bodies through a much longer transition.
Yeah.
So let's rewind a little bit for someone who's maybe just starting to explore this. What is actually happening in the body during menopause that kind of triggers this cascade of potential
Mm-hmm.
issues?
Well, you can think of it like this estrogen, a hormone that plays a key role in regulating a whole bunch of bodily functions.
Hmm.
That starts to decline during menopause.
Okay.
And as estrogen levels drop, it triggers this domino effect, particularly in the brain.
Okay, so estrogen is the first domino to fall.
Yes.
What happens next?
Well, estrogen has a direct impact on certain neurotransmitters in the brain, those chemical messengers that keep everything running smoothly. Things like serotonin, norepinephrine. These neurotransmitters are involved in everything from regulating your mood to controlling your sleep cycle to even managing your body temperature.
Oh, so that's the connection to those infamous hot flashes.
Yeah,
The body's internal thermostat going a little haywire.
exactly. When your estrogen levels drop, it disrupts this delicate balance of these neurotransmitters, particularly in the hypothalamus, which acts like your body's internal thermostat.
Okay.
That's why you get those sudden surges of heat, the night sweats, even the chills that can sometimes accompany hot flashes.
It's like your brain is stuck on a tropical vacation, even if the rest of you isn't quite so thrilled about it.
Right.
But it's not just about temperature regulation, is it? You mentioned mood and sleep, too.
Right. Those same neurotransmitters, serotonin and norepinephrine, they're also essential for a stable mood and restful sleep.
Okay.
So when they're out of whack, it's no wonder that many women experience mood swings, irritability, anxiety, difficulty sleeping during menopause.
So we're starting to see how this domino effect of estrogen decline can really impact a woman's overall well being.
And this is why understanding the underlying mechanisms of menopause is so important. It's not just about treating individual symptoms in isolation, but recognizing that they're all interconnected
Hmm.
and part of a much larger physiological process.
So knowing how crucial estrogen is and how its decline can lead to these like long-lasting effects,
Right.
you're probably wondering what can I do about it?
Exactly.
Let's talk about some of those non-hormonal options for relief that the
Yeah.
article highlights.
Of course. So while hormone replacement therapy can be very effective for many women,
Right.
it's not suitable for everyone.
Sure.
And some women would prefer to explore alternative options first.
Right. It's about finding what works best for your individual needs and circumstances.
Exactly.
So, what are some of the non-hormonal approaches that have shown promise? What's this about borrowing from other ailments?
Oh, it's such a good way to put it. It really captures like the essence of this approach. It's like
Yeah.
we're looking at these medications
Yeah.
that were originally designed for something else, like high blood pressure, seizures, even depression, and we're realizing,
Wow.
hey, these could actually help with some of the underlying things that are going on with menopause.
So it's not about like masking the symptoms. It's like how do we get to the root of the problem?
Yeah,
And I know we were talking about how estrogen affects those key neurotransmitters.
right.
Are these borrowed medications actually working directly on those?
They are, yeah. Let's take clonidine, for example.
Okay.
It's typically used to lower blood pressure,
Hmm.
but it also happens to stimulate specific receptors in the brain that can help regulate norepinephrine,
Okay.
which again, one of those neurotransmitters that we talked about
Yeah.
that's so important. And so by calming down that norepinephrine activity, it can actually provide relief from hot flashes.
That's fascinating. So it's like we're indirectly addressing the estrogen gap, but by working on those downstream effects.
Precisely.
Interesting.
And then there's gabapentin,
Okay.
an anticonvulsant that's often used to manage nerve pain and seizures.
Right.
It turns out that gabapentin can increase levels of GABA,
Okay.
another important neurotransmitter that has these calming effects on the brain. And while the exact mechanisms aren't fully understood, research suggests this boost in GABA activity could be why it seems to help some women manage those hot flashes.
It's amazing how much we're still learning about like the intricate workings of the brain and how they all relate back to this.
Totally.
So we've got medications that are influencing norepinephrine. We've got these medications that are working on GABA.
Yeah.
What other pathways are we talking about here?
Well, as you might have guessed, given the impact of menopause on mood,
Yeah.
antidepressants also have a role to play.
Okay.
Specifically, a class of antidepressants known as SSRIs, or selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, have shown some real promise for managing both the emotional and physical symptoms of menopause.
Okay. I'm intrigued. I know SSRIs are often prescribed for depression and anxiety. How do they fit into this puzzle?
So, as their name suggests, SSRIs work by increasing serotonin levels in the brain.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, serotonin, another one of those key neurotransmitters that we talked about, that kind of takes a hit when estrogen declines.
Right. Estrogen goes down, serotonin goes down, mood goes down, sleep goes out of whack. It's all connected.
Exactly. So, by boosting serotonin levels, SSRIs can help regulate mood, improve sleep, and for some women, even reduce the frequency and severity of hot flashes.
Wow.
Paroxetine and venlafaxine are two examples that are mentioned in the article that seem to be particularly effective for managing menopausal symptoms.
So it's like finding that multi-purpose tool in your toolbox, like one medication that can potentially address multiple aspects of what you're going through with menopause.
That's a great way to put it. And that's really the beauty of this approach. It's not about finding a magic bullet, but it's about really understanding the underlying mechanisms at play
Right.
and then tailoring the treatment options to each woman's unique needs and the symptoms.
Which brings us back to the importance of that holistic approach
Yes.
that we touched on earlier. It's not just about throwing medication at each individual symptom. It's about, thinking about the whole person.
Absolutely. And this is where having an open and honest conversation with your healthcare provider is so important. They can help you weigh the potential benefits and risks of different treatment options, taking into account your medical history, your preferences, your lifestyle factors.
It's about making those decisions together as a team.
Exactly.
Now, something we haven't talked about yet are those lifestyle changes that can also make a big difference during menopause. I'm thinking diet, exercise, stress management, those sorts of things. Does the article touch on any of that?
Yeah, absolutely. And, while medication can be incredibly helpful for managing symptoms, the article really emphasizes that lifestyle changes are often like that first line of defense.
Check that.
Things like regular exercise, a balanced diet, stress reducing practices like yoga or meditation. These things can have a really profound impact on how your body kind of navigates this transition.
So it's like we're giving our bodies the best possible foundation to kind of weather these hormonal shifts.
Exactly. For example, regular physical activity can actually help regulate those temperature control centers in the brain, potentially reducing the frequency and severity of hot flashes.
Wow.
And then a diet that's rich in fruits, vegetables, whole grains can help stabilize your blood sugar levels, which is especially important during menopause because fluctuations in blood sugar can actually make things like mood swings and fatigue even worse.
Oh, wow. So many interconnected systems. It really highlights that need for that holistic perspective that we've been talking about.
I couldn't agree more. And I think it's also just empowering for women to realize they have a certain degree of control over how they experience this.
Right.
It's not just something to be endured, it's an opportunity to make these positive changes that support both their physical and mental well being, not just in the short term, but for decades to come.
It's about optimizing our health for the long game.
Yes.
Now, before we wrap up, is there anything else from this article that really stood out to you? Something that maybe our listeners should kind of keep in mind as they're continuing their own exploration of menopause?
I think what really struck me was this emphasis on personalized care.
Okay.
Because there's really no one size fits all approach to managing menopause. Every woman's experience is unique,
Right.
and what works for one woman might not work for another.
Right. It's about finding what works best for you
Yeah.
in consultation with your healthcare provider.
Exactly. So if you're struggling, don't suffer in silence. Reach out to your doctor, have that open and honest conversation about what you're experiencing, and don't be afraid to advocate for your needs.
That's right.
There are so many options available, and with the right information and support, you can navigate this transition with confidence and grace.
Beautifully said. Well, on that empowering note, it's time for us to wrap up this deep dive.
Hmm.
Huge thank you to our expert for sharing your incredible insights with us today. And to our listener, we hope this deep dive has kind of equipped you with a deeper understanding of menopause and the many paths to relief. Remember, it's not the end of an era, it's the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with possibility and, dare we say, even a little bit of wisdom. Until next time, keep those minds curious and those conversations flowing.